Hello, my name's Tamsin, and today I'm going to be cooking hot cross buns, or they can be fruit buns as well, which is really yummy. I have lots of ingredients here and lots of utensils, and I'll put a list of the ingredients and the amounts that you need as you go through as we do the cooking. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to measure out plain flour. So you need 3 cups of plain flour. I've got just plain white flour here, but you could use wholemeal plain flour if you'd like, that's fine. And 3. Now, you do need some sugar. You can use any sort of sugar you like. You could use white sugar, which is what I have here. You could use caster sugar if you like. You could use raw sugar. You could even use brown sugar, but white sugar or raw sugar is probably the best. And I need half a cup of sugar. Here's my half cup of sugar. Now, this is my yeast, and this is a very important ingredient. This is dried yeast. And I actually need 2 teaspoons of this. The teaspoon is the little one, like that. And I need 2 teaspoons. So I'm going to put 1, and I'm going to sprinkle it all over the sugar and the flour like that. That's 1 spoon. And that's 2. Just give it a bit of a mix through there. Make sure that yeast is thoroughly mixed through. Yeast is actually a live ingredient, which is really interesting. And when yeast gets wet, that's what helps make the bread rise, or the buns. And it actually works with the sugar. That's why you need the sugar. So I'm also going to put some spices in. You can use whatever spices you like. I'm going to use some cinnamon because I really like cinnamon. I'm going to use some mixed spice, and I'm going to put a little tiny bit of ginger, ground ginger, in as well. So this is my mixed spice, and I'm going to put a teaspoon of mixed spice. So when you have those hot cross buns, that yummy smell that you can smell when you cook or heat the hot cross buns are usually the spices that are in them. I'm going to put a good teaspoon. You can put more if you want, or however much you want if you like them nice and spicy. I'm just going to put a shake of ginger. You don't have to put very much. I'm just going to put a bit of a shake like that. And we'll put a teaspoon of cinnamon. I love cinnamon. Cinnamon smells so good. Yeah. So I don't mind if there's a little bit extra of cinnamon in there. There we go. And they're all very fine spices because they're ground up. So we'll mix those through as well. Mix them thoroughly. You can actually use a big spoon to mix those through. There we go. And it still just looks like flour, but it has got those yummy spices and the important yeast and a bit of sugar in there. Just a little shake. That's more than enough. Now I'm going to put in my fruit, my dried fruit. I've got little tiny currants there. I've got some sultanas and I've got cranberries, which I really like. So they're going to go in. And they go. And whoops, last little one. But you can put in chopped chips, or you could put in chopped up apricots or any other fruit that dry fruit that you like. Alright, so I'm just going to pop that aside for the moment, and now we're going to do the wet ingredients that will make the yeast work and make them into buns. So I've got some butter here. This is 60 grams of butter. You can use margarine if you like, but butter, I've got butter today. We'll pop that in the saucepan. And I need some milk. I need a cup of milk. I'll measure that out. And pop that in there. And now I'm going to melt this on the stove. So here's my melted butter with the hot milk in there. Now, if I put that in with the flour mix with the yeast, it would actually kill the yeast and then our buns wouldn't rise. So I'm going to put some cold water in here to cool the mixture down, and we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to put a cup of cold water in there. Just water from the tap is fine, just cool water. There we go. And we'll just make sure that that's not too hot. So this needs to be about blood temperature. So it needs to feel about the same as your hands, then it's not too hot. So now what we need to do is bring back our big bowl of the dry ingredients and then carefully pour our lukewarm, the blood temperature milk and water and butter into our mix. I make a little well in the centre of the flour there, flour mix, and then just pour it all in. And then mix it all around. And you know what? I can smell those spices already. Now this is quite a sloppy mix. It should be quite moist. So we'll see how we go. Sometimes you can just add a little bit more liquid, a bit more milk is probably the best. Let's see how we go. Make sure you scrape all of that goodness down from the sides and into the mix, and you need to get all of that flour mixed in and all of the spices and everything mixed thoroughly through. And then just flatten it out around the base of the bowl, like that. And then use your little teaspoon to scrape off all of the goodness that's on the spoon. Make sure there's no flour stuck on that spoon either. Scrape out all of that. Spread that bit out too. It's looking good. Now, that doesn't look like bread or yeast buns yet, or fruit buns. So what we have to do is let the yeast work with the liquid, the butter and the milk and a little bit of water and the sugar, and let it grow. But it needs to be nice and warm to do that, but not warm enough to kill or cook the yeast. So what we can do is we can put a tea towel over the top like that and just lay it aside for probably about an hour. I'm actually going to put some Glad wrap over the top today, because today when I'm cooking it's actually quite cool and my house is not that warm at the moment. So I'm going to put some Glad wrap over the top of this, and that just helps keep the heat in, any heat that was left from that butter and milk warmth will just help the yeast work. So I'm just going to pop a little bit of Glad wrap over the top like that, and then I'm going to pop that over next to my stove where I've got the oven on. Okay, so here we are. It's been about an hour, just a little bit longer than an hour, about an hour and 10 minutes. And here is our dough. It's risen a little bit there, which is looking good. I can feel that the bowl is actually quite warm, which is nice. I'll just pop that aside for a minute. I have to have a tray ready to make my hot cross buns, my fruit buns on. So I've got a tray here, and I'm just going to put a little bit of baking paper on it, just like that. You don't have to do that. You could actually just butter that, put some butter on it, or even just some flour, but I'm going to use some baking paper there. So I have a tray ready there, and I need some flour, some more plain flour here. And what I'm going to do with my plain flour is I'm actually just going to sprinkle it on my work surface here. Looks pretty. And it doesn't matter if you use quite a bit of flour, like that. And I might need some more, so I'm going to leave that just there. And I'm going to empty out my dough. It's nice and warm, and I've got a little scraper to help me here, but you could use just a knife or even a spoon. It smells really yummy. And I'm just going to empty this sticky dough out onto the floured surface there. There we go. Nice and sticky. Sticky, sticky. Make sure you scrape out all of those yummy spices and all of the bits of fruit. And that looks good. I'm going to put flour on my hands as well so that it doesn't stick too much. We'll use that again later. I'm going to sprinkle a bit of flour on the top of my dough like this, and then make sure my hands are well floured, and then I'm going to knead this dough. That means I'm going to roll it into a ball, make sure it's well floured, and then I'm going to knead it like this, pushing it back and forth, rolling it into a circle, pushing it back and forth, rolling it around, making sure there's plenty of flour. And now it's not so sticky. You can feel that, and you can just keep kneading it like this. Now I'm going to roll this into a bit of a sausage, I guess, like that. And I'm going to use my little cutter that I have here, put some flour on that. You could just use a knife, it doesn't really matter. I've just got mine here. And I'm going to cut it in half, like that. And it'll be quite sticky in the middle, so again, you might need a little bit of flour. And then I'm going to take one of these halves and I'm going to cut it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's a little tiny bit. We might use that again in a minute. And then I'm going to do the same for the other side. And these are going to become the buns. Alright, so these are going to become my little buns. So I'm going to roll them, squish them into a little circle. So the easiest way to make them into a nice bun is to make a little bit of a sausage and then curl them over into a bun like that. And then I'm going to pop it on my tray just like that. So I'm going to make all of these into my fruit buns. Here we are. Here's our hot cross buns that are starting to happen now. Now what we're going to do some different sorts of things for these. So I'm going to first of all make a cross on some of these, and there are different ways that you can do this. So what I'm going to do for one of them is I've got a pair of scissors here and I'm going to cut across into the dough like this. I'm going to go 1 and 2, and there's a little cross. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. Now that's one way of doing a cross. That's an old-fashioned way of doing a little cross, and as the bread rises, the dough rises again, the little cross will be there. That's probably not how you buy hot cross buns now. They have a little cross on them. So we're going to make a little cross, and we just get some flour. We don't need very much, maybe half a cup. I'm just going to use a handful really, because we're just going to mix this into a paste. And I've got some water here. Spoon, I'm just going to mix this into a little paste. Probably need a little bit more water. You just need this to be at the point where you can roll it into a sausage. So it's nearly there. Alright, let's see if we can work this dough. This is like a little dough as well, but I'll tell you what, it won't taste as good as the hot cross buns because it's just flour and water. But that's alright, that's what we're wanting for this. So we'll make this into a little bit, cut off a little sausage of it and make it a little bit of it and make it into a sausage. And you can roll it and make it as thin as we can make it. Thin, thin, thin. And pull it out, roll it, roll it, roll it. And then what we'll do is we'll cut it into maybe 4. And see if you can roll that as thin as you can. As thin as you can. It's a very easy dough to work with this. It doesn't have the yeast and the other things in it. But there, you can make another little thin bit. One little thin bit. And then, however you need to make another little thin bit. And then what we can do, we can, on the hot cross buns here, we can put a little cross. 1 and 2, like that. So there are different ways that you can make this. This is a quick, easy way. You can actually pipe a soft dough onto it as well. Cut this little bit in half there. Make another little cross. So there's a couple with hot cross there. And these might be more familiar with the hot cross buns. Excellent. Now, I've got some in here that I haven't put anything on yet. what I'm going to do with these, I'm just going to leave these as fruit buns. So what we're going to do for all of these is put a bit of a glaze on them just to make them nice. I'm just going to use milk. You can use a brush if you like, but you can just use your fingers, and you just dip your fingers in the water and you just in the milk, and then you just brush over the top like this. That one another little bit of a cut, I think. There we go. Make sure that there's a nice deep cut there. That one looks good. And we'll have another go there. Now, the little bit of a treat that you can do is on the top of the buns, you can sprinkle a little bit of raw sugar. Just a little bit. You can even just do it with your fingers. Just a little treat on the top, because these are special buns. And for these ones that don't have any cross on them, that's a special treat for those too. So that's a special bit that can go with that. You can mix a bit of cinnamon in this if you like. Otherwise we'll just pop them on there. Now, they're looking good. What we have to do now is leave these to rise again. So we want them to puff up and make them a bit bigger before we put them in the oven to cook. So I'm going to set these aside to rise. Okay, so I've had my hot cross buns and my fruit buns here rising for about another hour. And I'm going to pop them in the oven now to cook. I've got my oven on quite hot. So we'll pop them in and we'll have a look at them in about 20 minutes. Well, I'm quite excited. Here we are. There's our hot cross buns. I'm really pleased with those. The tray is really hot and the buns are just out of the oven. They took about half an hour in my oven, but that's because my oven's a bit cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop them onto a tray so that they can dry and cool. So I can actually even just slide them off like this. And they're really delicious eaten hot, but not too hot. They need to cool for probably about 20 minutes, I think, to make them able to be eaten, but still nice and warm. So I'll just let them cool there, and then we'll have one. Well, I'm quite excited. Here are the hot cross buns, and there are the different ones. There are the ones that we made with the little dough cross on them. And there are the ones that we cut that have a little cross cut into them. And then there are the fruit buns. So they look good. So they've cooled enough for me to be able to have one now. And with these, sometimes you can just break them in half, or you could cut them. Doesn't really matter. See what you think. I'm going to cut mine. Still hot and warm inside, beautifully cooked. And I'm going to spread a bit of butter on it. And they're still hot enough, warm enough for the butter to just start to melt. That looks delicious. Well, I hope that you can go and make some hot cross buns or some fruit buns. It's that time of year, and I hope you enjoy doing that. I'm going to enjoy my hot cross bun. Bye for now.